say anyway.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 2186, and Mike Matthews. Welcome to the show that I think is called
Mike's Daily Podcast.
And it's Thursday, and we've got, let's see, stuff to talk about. Yes, it's been rough for some of you this week. You're like, what the heck? How did this week start? How's it going to end? When's the weekend? And I guess a lot of people are moving these days. They're getting out of
Mike's Daily Podcast,
the crowded cities, and moving to places like Florida, I hear, is one of the top places.
Mike's
Maybe I should post
Daily
a podcast picture from Florida.
Podcast.
That's probably what I'll do.
Yeah!
Because I've been there many times. My mom is there. And I've only explored a tiny bit, a third of the country of Florida. The fine land. The windswept land gets hit by hurricanes a lot. That's one thing I don't know if people are taking into consideration when they move to Florida, like my mom did. Wow, more than 15 years ago. So yeah, it may not be the best place for everybody, and it's humid, and there are bugs, and there are interesting things crawling around. But once you get to used to all that, and enjoy the warm water and the beaches, it's perfect. And a lot of people going to Texas as well, or they're just staying in Texas. What would we have done had the coronavirus hit us 10 years ago? Would we have been able to do this work from home thing? I guess we had Skype 10 years ago. We could have made that work. But yeah, if it happened 10 years from now, we'd probably be a lot better off. But this is where we are. So my lovely lady friend, I got her for Christmas a heating cup mat. It's one of these things you plug into.
And here's today's podcast picture.
A computer. You plug it into the USB port and it keeps your coffee warm. Sort of. But the writing on this thing is so bad. It's from another country. And, well, actually, let's see if I could even read it, because it is frickin' tiny. Drinking water is too cold or too hot in daily life. To keep our body health, we need to drink proper water temperature water. The suitable temperature for drinking is 52 Celsius to 55 Celsius. That's right, Basil. You didn't ever drink coffee. No. It's bad for you. And yes, he never went to Florida either. But that's all right. He was okay despite all that. I miss him. It says here, orientation locker keeps warm and supplies suitable temperature water anytime. What? It heats water by low energy thermostatic control system. Power on and off is controls by orientation locker. Please. Who is proofreading this? This is what, if you buy this off of Amazon, this is the type of English you'll get. Check. Put it on a flat surface. Power on. Press space by your hand to check power on and off. Power indicator shows power and working status. Keep warm. Cup should be cleaned before heating and fill water. Put a cup in the circle position of panel. The gravity switch is switched on and indicator lights up. It starts to keep warm status. Turn off. Take the cup away. The gravity switch turns off the power. The product stops heating. Okay, now the English is getting a little bit better. But yeah, it's true. It uses like a gravity sensor to tell if there's a cup on it or not. That way you don't have to keep plugging and unplugging the device. And then to wrap that all up, I'd like to say a dose of adversity is often as needful as a dose of medicine. Yes, forget about the spoonful of sugar. It's a dose of adversity. So I'm watching yesterday the show I was telling you about last podcast, the Surviving Death podcast. And what I have learned is that there is a lot of people that attribute ghosts to all kinds of bizarre things that aren't necessarily, I mean, they're bizarre, but they may or may not be ghosts. It's just, wow. The stuff that they were talking about, like this guy, he got a Polaroid camera and he would take pictures in the house and there would be weird light streaks and words written. Like he could ask a question and there would be a word that would be printed across the picture that he would just be taking of random things in his house. And that, if that's true, that is, yes, that is weird. But was even better in this show, and sometimes this show dips down to the stuff you're just going, no, But there was an interesting topic about people who are terminal, who are in hospice, how so many of them will see people within a couple of weeks, a lot of people that have passed on, as if they are helping comfort them to bring them home to the afterlife. And so that is very interesting, because this phenomenon seems to happen all the time. If people aren't seeing it actually like a vision, like a hallucination, they're seeing it in their dreams. And they're like, oh yeah, my wife who passed away suddenly showed up and talked to me. And it happens a lot. I never knew that. I had heard stories, of people on their deathbed and suddenly they look over and they see someone that had passed away years before. Oh, and it's not just people, it's also dogs. I don't know about cats, but definitely dogs. So it's interesting. But yes, you have to have a little bit of patience when you watch the show, because you have to sit through a lot of people you're like, they're just a little bit, I don't know about that part. As we go outside a cafe anyway, we're bringing you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcaster Valley. For example, there is a lady who supposedly channels these different ghosts, different spirits, and when she channels them, she actually changes her voice, kind of like somebody, I don't know, you might listen to a podcast from. Hey, look who's outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcaster Valley. Hi, Mark, it's Benita the Rodeo Queen. How y'all doing? It's a Disgruntled Fiddle Player telling you what? Whatever happened to Terry Clark? Terry Clark, I've got better things to do. I was discussing this with Ken, who hosts the podcast The Mornings with Maria, and apparently he once lived near Terry Clark's mom. Terry Clark, I met her years ago, and I know I recorded this interview on cassette. It's going to take me a long time to dig through everything to find it. But yes, I interviewed her when she first came out. She didn't have any hit songs yet. She had a couple hit songs on country radio in the 90s. Just so you know. And she was like a cowboy hat wearing woman, which looked different with a lot of the country singers at the time. They weren't that were female, were not wearing cowboy hats in the early 90s. A lot of them, like Martine McBride, no cowboy hat. Shania Twain, Faith Hill, but you had Terry Clark put on a cowboy hat and looked total cowgirl, rather. Where am I going with? Oh, Disgruntled Fiddle Player, thank you. Oh, look who else is here.
Hello, Mike. I make the delicious root beer house right now.
Thank you. Yes, I guess we're completely out of the eggnog root beer, which is good, and the Coquito root beer. The model and spouse to Justin Bieber said that she is working with a therapist to help her deal with online harassment and gossip. So you want to be popular, you want to be a popular podcaster or be popular on the internet with your social media. She says, I have had a lot of this, I've had to work a lot of this through with a therapist, because it had got to a point where the trolls had gotten way too crazy for me, and I was really anxious all the time. She's 24, by the way. The thing that bothers me the most is that a lot of people online really want me to be a not nice person. You've never even met me in person. You don't know me. Much of the negative attention stems from her marriage to one of the big pop stars of the moment. Actually, he's been kind of a big pop star for a couple of years now. And let's see, as the article notes, this is an article from the Evening Standard newspaper. Bieber was recently targeted by a fan of her husband's ex-girlfriend, Selena Gomez, prompting him to speak out against those who bully the person I love the most in the world. There you go. That's the tough life that they lead. Hey, something to consider, that we can't afford to wait for COVID-19 vaccines to be rolled out. I know that for a fact. I was talking to my mom yesterday in Florida, and she said it is taking forever. She was going to, being a senior, being someone over 65, she was expecting to get a vaccine shot, and they told her to wait outside of this area in Daytona Beach, and she drove up, and she got there fairly early, and there was a huge line. She said it looked like it was 1.5 miles long, and people had spent the night there waiting to get the vaccine. It's, as you know, a mess. It's been a bit of a mess doing the whole rollout. So here's what we can do to curb the virus right now. This is from Time Magazine. We need to get every American a high filtration mask. This is who said this eventually? Apparently, this was from Gavin Yamey. But yeah, basically wear masks. Schools and workplaces need to be made safer. There needs to be better ventilation, air filtration, spacing between people, universal masking, reducing the density of people. We got to protect our essential workers. We need to build a functioning nationwide test, trace, isolate, and support system. Which is interesting because they were trying to push an app on me about a month ago that would do that sort of contact tracing thing, and it's hard to jump that huge gap, that huge chasm, to say, hey, yeah, I trust somebody looking at all my information all the time that I don't know. I mean, we do that already with Google and all these other things, Facebook, but you're having another person do it? It's weird. But it would apparently help things. In countries where they have done it, it has helped a lot. And this article also says the U.S. needs a circuit breaker to break the chains of transmission. That is a short-time national stay-at-home order. Yeah, good luck with that. Anyway, that's the latest on this podcast today. Thank you so much for listening to Mike's Daily Podcast, somewhere in Podcaster Valley, the last place on earth. Next show, it'll be the wonderful Madame Rootabega, Valentino, and Bison Bentley. Be safe out there. Good luck. Wear your mask. Be happy. Do things that make you happy. It can't be that bad. Don't watch scary Netflix documentaries about the afterlife that are just going to depress you. Although it's fascinating to me for some weird reason. Anyway, Cafe Anyway. We'll have Madame Rootabega, Valentino, and Bison Bentley next show.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!